Now in the middle of one of the most significant eras in automotive, Carl Anthony amplifies the minds and voices behind this historic transformation as the host of AutoVision News Radio.
Mic check 1 2.
All while coming to terms with middle age, father loss, and what it means to be successful in Detroit.
When I started in automotive at Sioux Falls Ford in January of 2009, a very cold January, my sales manager, who later became an influential mentor, said that no matter what, I should always conduct myself by the understanding that the car business is not really the car business, but the people business. The idea being that automotive is a human-centric endeavor, and that your interactions will shape and determine everything you do. For me, back then, it was helping a local farmer understand the difference between an F-250 and an F-350, or guiding a single parent through the process of picking a fuel-efficient Focus or Fusion because they needed something reliable for their kid, one who grew up way too fast and was now officially a jackrabbit, on their way to South Dakota State University in Brookings for the start of the fall semester. In our industry now, with ADAS, AI, SDVs, and any other acronyms we can muster, it's essential to understand the people behind making those letters become reality. Why do those in automotive dedicate so much of their career to something like ADAS? And when they make a breakthrough discovery or innovation, where can they turn to share such insight? Sara Sargent, Principal Brand Strategist for the global InCabin conference and community, is one of those industry experts who is right in the middle of the action when it comes to the technical innovations today that will shape the vehicles of tomorrow. InCabin emerged from the world-renowned AutoSense conference, both of which are produced by Sense Media Group. The co-located events offer 3 international exhibitions each year: the USA event in Detroit, the European event in Barcelona, and the Chinese event in Hefei. The InCabin conference provides attendees with a first-hand look at the technology, regulations, and key discussions driving the in-cabin space forward. The agenda often includes topics like DMS and OMS, AI integration, HMI considerations, acoustics, lighting, and overall cockpit design. An insightful engineer and a curious problem solver at heart, Sara has taken her vision for InCabin and built it into a one-of-a-kind industry event. Similar to how I was taught in my early years that the car business is really the people business, Sara also embodies this philosophy and thus has an incredible talent for building the relationships necessary to bring such a vision to life, be it with her colleagues at Sense Media or the many exhibitors, sponsors, and speakers who grace the InCabin show floor. She understands the technology, the regulations, the challenges, but perhaps more importantly, she understands the people who are working within the InCabin ecosystem each day. As we begin with Sara, she recalls how she pursued engineering a little later on, eventually earning a bachelor's in electrical engineering from the University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Moving at the speed of mobility, this is AutoVision News Radio with Carl Anthony in Detroit, Michigan.
I was a little late going to school. I was working full-time in retail and decided to go to school for engineering after being prodded by some friends, which was a fantastic step for me. I started my career at VSI Labs, now ViaSite, with Phil Magny and his team. When I worked there, I got exposed to tons of different really early stage prototype technologies. So for instance, we did HD map based lane keep. This is 2018, 2019. We were doing HD map based lane keeping and speed control, automatic emergency braking based on thermal camera imaging. I was very lucky to start my career that way because I got exposed to all the different sensing technologies for exterior perception. I also got to work with Phil Magny, who's an incredible industry analyst. So I got to learn both the engineering side and the market side, what it means to be an analyst, what it means to give genuine and honest opinions. And especially what I learned there was how to ask the right questions and what questions you should be asking as an analyst and as someone who's looking after a market.
The first time I met Sara, AutoSense Detroit in 2018, At that time, the event was at the Michigan Science Center, but Wayne State University nearby had dedicated a portion of a parking lot on its campus for ADAS demonstrations. Sara was there with a VSI Labs test car, and she was showcasing the different autonomous driving systems in that vehicle for attendees. My brother Alex, he was taking photos that year for AutoSense, and he needed to shoot some of the ADAS demos, so we headed over to Wayne State, eventually met Sara, who gave us a ride in the autonomous VSI Labs vehicle while my brother was taking photos. Afterwards, when we were headed back to the Michigan Science Center, Alex and I were like, yeah, Sara was awesome. She was really cool. Too bad we'll probably never see her again. And we were talking about how knowledgeable and funny she was. Thankfully, it was not the last time that I would see Sara, and since 2018, the AutoSense conference has grown exponentially. Although the primary focus was usually external sensing, in-cabin topics were gradually working their way into the AutoSense agenda. Over time, it was apparent that in-cabin just needed its own conference with its own program, and in March 2023, the first in-cabin event was held at the Scottsdale Center for the Performing Arts in Scottsdale, Arizona. And since then, in-cabin has continued to support the global community of automotive interior specialists by providing, like AutoSense, a best-in-class event experience.
We focus on really strong technical content. We do that via our advisory board, reviewing submissions from companies as a way of making sure we've curated not just really technical content, but what's most relevant and useful for people in the industry, whether they're tier ones or especially our OEMs. The AutoSense and in-cabin events are much more about building up a community of people who stay in contact and support each other outside of our events. We do free sessions like our Ask the Expert sessions all throughout the year on topics that people tell us are important to learn about. We are always putting out different content, articles, and looking for ways to promote these companies that are doing the right things. So we're very much a community-based organization and event, and that's what's been really successful for us for a decade.
Sara eventually came to Sense Media through her prior work with VSI Labs. Although an already established engineer in the ADAS community, Sara recalls the steep learning curve when she started building the in-cabin brand.
I didn't realize how different the technology was going to be. I really felt like I was starting over on having to learn what the different technologies and applications were. I spent 2 months when I first started traveling around Europe, meeting with companies who were working on DMS technologies. This was when child presence detection was really driving the market. So it was really, really safety focused at that time. But I got to meet with awesome companies in Sweden. I got to meet with Tobii and Smart Eye and Bosch, and got to visit ST Micro and Linred. It was an amazing way to kind of kickstart my relationships with the industry and my knowledge of the industry. And from there, I just can't get enough. I love it.
In 2024, AutoSense made its debut in China, hosting an event in Hefei, about 2.5 hours from Shanghai. As described by Sense Media, the area is an automotive hub with a strong OEM presence, a focus on new energy vehicles, and a thriving semiconductor ecosystem. Hefei ultimately served as the ideal host city for the very first AutoSense event in the Chinese market.
And it was a huge success. We had a really cool VIP dinner. We got to have even members of the government there locally come visit our event. And we had presentations from all different types of companies. There's kind of this nice cultural thing in China. They have a saying, and I would never attempt to say it wrong in Chinese, but basically it means give what's expected and then give a little bit more. That's how our culture is at Sense Media. And so it really feels like a nice fit for in-cabin and AutoSense to be meshing that culture together with China.
Software-defined vehicles, or SDVs for short, can provide an additional revenue stream for automakers after the original sale. SDVs also have the potential to increase brand loyalty, whereby a consumer's daily life is now more integrated with their vehicle and then more integrated within an automaker's larger ecosystem. Perhaps a good analogy is the Apple and Android comparison. If you have an Apple or an Android phone, chances are a lot of your personal and professional life is intertwined with that device. So when it's time to upgrade, it makes sense to stay within that operating system, as it were. In other words, all my stuff's here anyway, and automakers have a similar opportunity with SDVs to build that type of connected and personalized framework for their customers within the vehicle that can foster greater brand loyalty. While AutoSense made its debut in China in 2024, 2025 will mark the inaugural InCabin event in Hefei, co-located alongside AutoSense as it returns there for the second time. As Sara explains, personalization and connectivity are essential in the Chinese automotive market. Based on her observations, the in-vehicle experience has a certain wow factor.
And they'll have more variety of family members in the car. For instance, they might have grandparents, mom and dad, kids all in the car. And so that means that the features that the car offer need to be more dynamic and offer more variety. Then you get into the next level of personalization. So we have personalization in our vehicles here, of course, but China, it's farther and it's deeper. So you have so much of your content that you've spent time personalizing inside of your vehicle has really gotten to know you and what you want, that when you now need to go buy a new vehicle, you're going to have that brand stickiness and that brand loyalty to the same brand that you have, because you can just port over all of that personalization, where if you switch brands, now you're going to have to reinvest all of this time and energy re-establishing your preferences with that car. This is something I think is really interesting and really, really valuable to know.
During CES 2025, Sara met with Audio Foundry, described as a technology collaborative that empowers members to bring disruptive ideas to life in automotive audio and acoustics. Founded in 2023 and headquartered in Wales, the Audio Foundry serves as an experimental retreat for OEMs, component manufacturers, and technology providers across the value chain. The organization is dedicated to the discovery of novel technologies that enhance the automotive audio ecosystem. In a blog post written after her visit to CES, Sara expands on how the automotive industry is looking at ways to mitigate driver anxiety. Could audio innovations be a potential solution? Using audio to mitigate that stress is a very real and viable solution, and the time is right for the OEMs to start incorporating it into their wellness and safety systems, Sara writes. I will leave a link to her blog post in the show notes. New audio technologies can increase vehicle efficiency and even alert drivers to other road users. AutoSense and InCabin attendees in the future are likely to see more audio innovations on the exhibition floor.
We generally think about audio for more of the comfort feature, just having cool, good sound in your car for listening to great music. On the safety side, I think we would think of audio, we'd think of like lane departure warning alerts, that type of stuff. Sounds like some regulations might be coming where there's going to be requirements for how you're getting emergency vehicle sirens and alerts to the driver. For instance, they're listening to their music too loud, they can't hear it. You need to be able to get that emergency alert to them before they see the lights on the vehicle. But what's really interesting is noise cancellation for voice clarity. We're planning to have so many more audio interactions inside of the vehicle. Everybody's talking about, their LLMs and their personal assistants inside of the vehicle. So that voice assistant is going to become really critical as a feature for people to use. If that voice assistant doesn't pick up well, then they're not going to use it. So that noise cancellation for voice clarity is actually really, really important. One that was the most surprising to me, which was how it saves OEMs on cost, the new developments they can do with noise cancellation. So they need to cancel the road noise, and in higher end vehicles, this is something that's done with physical materials to dampen the sound from the roadway. If they can do this with, software upgrades to their audio, that means they don't need to invest in those heavy materials that weigh down the car, add weight to the car, and cost more, and they get better fuel economy that way, having the lighter vehicle too.
As Sara was meeting with companies and other stakeholders within the greater InCabin industry, she was taking a lot of notes. As she filled yet another notebook of learnings and observations from her meetings, she had an idea. Why not take all this ink on the paper and turn it into a free report for the benefit of the global InCabin community? And so the official InCabin report from Sense Media was published based on Sara's notes and her observations from her many previous meetings. Although companies can contribute, the report is unsponsored. It is designed as a resource for those in the industry who want to keep up to date and have a reference source throughout the year, whether it guides R&D, business strategy, or global planning, Sara writes in the opening of the guide. This report is comprised of information I've learned with several contributors from people across the industry who have more insight and experience than I have.
My focus is InCabin every day of the year, not just my event, but the industry, the companies, what's happening in different geographies, the regulations, the trends. And so I am very lucky that I spend most of my time getting to meet with all these companies who are in the InCabin space. And so I wanted to take all of that and give it back to my InCabin community.
One of Sara's goals with the InCabin report was to encourage cross-functional communication, since the entirety of the ecosystem encompasses a range of backgrounds, disciplines, and skills, from engineering and business development to marketing and regulations. The report includes a section called Current Influences, which covers topics such as supply chain management, human factors, monetization opportunities for OEMs, and the pace of Chinese innovation. The Topics of Debate section examines key questions, like how to measure alcohol impairment and buttons versus screens. The report opens with a market map of companies and stakeholders within the InCabin space, organized under two overarching umbrellas: applications and technologies.
So that's how it splits in my brain. There's the hardware and software technologies, and then there's understanding how those apply in applications. All of the companies who submitted, we put that into the market map that you can see in the report, or we hand them out at our events. I designed sort of what topics I think were most important to cover in a report that I think are actually interesting and useful, what I think engineers are thinking about, and what I think business and marketing teams are thinking about. The marketing and business development people that I'm meeting have really rich backgrounds in technology. So companies who told me that they were willing to give a quote via the survey, I picked 20 of those companies. I chose them based on, I wanted to have a variety of companies that have been around since the beginning of InCabin that are super well established in the industry. And I wanted to get companies who have strong expertise in other verticals and are newer to the automotive space or new just to the InCabin brand and get their perspectives. Every one of those companies really turned it around, were super responsive, super helpful, and it was really important to them to get the right thing in there. So this isn't a marketing piece or a sponsored piece. This is the companies I think you should be hearing from.
When everything was done and compiled and the InCabin report was released, Sara's colleague, Ellie Lois Hardy, Senior Marketing Executive for Sense Media, Ellie was helping with the promotion, which included an email campaign. And of course, for Sara, it was another learning opportunity.
She sends it so that it comes from my email address. I had to for the first time ever, set rules for my Outlook so that all of the out of offices would go to a folder. And she's just said whatever keywords I type in, it will filter those out. And I put in like out of office, vacation, and just a couple terms like that. I learned that there are tons of ways that people tell you that they are not responding to their email beyond words like out of office. Someone said that they were searching for Sarah Connor and that the world depended on it. And basically they would be out for this amount of time, but I'll be back. That was really funny. But so I've learned that there's a lot of different ways that people say that they're out of office. And I learned how to do rules. So random thing, but kind of funny.
Marley DiVirgilio, membership co-chair for the Automotive Women's Alliance Foundation, once told me that the automotive industry is a big world But when you take a second look, it's actually a small world because of the lasting connections that we can create. This is one of Sara's many abilities, something both my brother and I saw when we took our first autonomous drive with her at AutoSense in Detroit in May of 2018. A self-driving car is a complex concept, but Sara simplified it, humanized it. Despite being around ADAS technology before, both my brother and I were a little nervous to get on the road and ride in a fully autonomous vehicle. Although that fear was calmed by the knowledge and reassurance Sara offered us as an experienced safety driver. She can take something that seems almost unbelievably comically large, like the entire InCabin ecosystem, and somehow make it small, make it tangible, make it so that you are heard and understood. Officially, on the record, I would say Sara can do all this because she has a background in engineering and business development and applies that knowledge to help companies and other stakeholders stay involved in the in-cabin industry and understand the market as a whole. And that is true. That's true. But off the record, I would say it's her sense of humor.
I hope that my legacy will be bringing people together to make their lives easier, help them meet their goals by meeting the right people, and having fun and laughing a lot. I think life's too short to walk around with a grimace. Let's make each other smile. Let's enjoy it while we can. We can be professional and still have fun and laugh. That's what I hope people think of me in the future.
To learn more about the InCabin event and to download the InCabin reports, see the links in the show notes. AutoVision News Radio is available on all major podcast platforms. In Detroit, alongside Sara Sargent, I'm Carl Anthony, AutoVision News Radio.